So now we would like to start the session 3, expert intervention 2. So again, then, an initiative such as UNESCO Chair will provide a critical interference for universities' relations with business, government, and non-governmental institutions involved with sustainable development goals. WENDI will forge closer links amongst universities in disseminating knowledge about the ongoing research and teaching within the universities and beyond. This session will continue to gather insights from other UNESCO chairs, especially further steps to be considered for WENDI to achieve aspirations for the connectivity. So now I would like to invite Professor Matjas Mikos, and he's a UNESCO chair holder, UNESCO chair on water-related disaster risk reduction, Slovenia, and he'll be talking about more room for water initiative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to thank, of course, University of Kyoto to invite me to this event. So I will start with congratulations for the establishment of a new UNESCO chair. I hope we could cooperate in future also So the UNESCO chair on so-called water-related disaster risk reduction established 2016 at the University of Ljubljana is not very old. It has been established basically 2016 and we started 2017. My role here is that I'm the UNESCO chair, but also at the same moment this chair is hosted by the Faculty of Civil and Geodetic Engineering, and I'm the dean of this faculty. So I have a role as a teacher and also as the UNESCO chair. I would like to present to you in an initiative which is called More Room for Water. More about that later. Hopefully it will be understood from previous lectures so that you would see if you want to change the attitude towards floods, let's say, or to recharge groundwater, that you need basically more room for waters, which we have taken away from waters maybe in centuries. I will start with the presentation overview very shortly about activities of our chair in the last few years. I will go to a certain report of Sustainable Development Goals, which is introducing a new index and giving a dashboard so that we will see that countries are not in the same position with regard to the Sustainable Development Goals achievement. I will go to SENA framework on disaster risk reduction, and especially would like to stress the disaster science. We are contributing not on an equal basis to it. I will shortly present the More Room for Water initiative and maybe some perspectives for collaboration in future. So our activities are defined as a mix of natural, technical, and social sciences. This is, of course, very important if you want to achieve capacity development and society resilience. And our attitude, our activities are given in 12 points. All these 12 points are given in the abstract book. I won't go into details, but yes, we are aware we would like to proceed to go from classical water management into an integrated water resources management. For example, we would like to tackle socio-economic damages, especially during flash floods we have. It is important to promote risk management, to do capacity building. So I think we are quite aligned with the wishes or aims and goals of the WENDI chair established at Kyoto University. There are another 6, from 6 to 12. Yes, we are also aware that teaching and research is, of course, bound to each other, is very important. I'm coming from a university. We are a full university having 40,000 students. We know that we should integrate research we are doing. We should integrate our professional skills together with, of course, study programs at different levels. First Bologna cycle, second Bologna cycle, or let it be especially in doctoral study programs. We are tackling natural environment and also built environment. We also have a graduate program which is called Built Environment, and we are combining different disciplines into built environment. We are aware that more than 50% of population is already living in urban areas, and this number will just go up. Maybe about some recent events. Last year we co-organized the 4th World Landslide Forum in Ljubljana that was co-organized together with the International Consortium on Landslides, which is based precisely here in Kyoto, led by Professor Kyoji Sasa. That was quite an achievement. 3 last forums were in large cities like Tokyo, Rome, and Beijing. So Ljubljana with 300,000 inhabitants was like a small village for the event. But we succeeded to have 600 participants from 50 countries, from many international bodies, and that was, let's say, our already contribution to the Sendai framework. What we are planning to have is another construction, so-called construction forum, to be held next April in Ljubljana. This event is, of course, dedicated to construction issues, but if you see themes like energy in 21st century, this is part of the WENDI, engineering capacity building, construction 4.0, especially cultural heritage in digital world and disaster risk management and governance for resilient communities, all these things are covered by the WENDI chair. So you are really invited to go to the website, which is given here. You could, up to the 15th of October, you can upload an abstract. And basically, the idea of this construction forum is not to publish papers. It is to make videos and make it freely available afterwards of selected presenters out of this abstract. So the idea is really to have several hours of material to be used for doctoral studies around the world, not just for us, also for others. Of course, the official language will be English. So you are invited heartily to come along. We have been in the last several years involved into a flood risk master. This is a European-sponsored master program. We had in last 6 years over 100 master students finish this study course. Study course was reevaluated. We will start a new 5-year term. And it is, of course, holistic approach, social sciences, and we are just partner where Technical University from Dresden, Germany, Technical University from Catalonia of Spain, and the IHE Delft from the Netherlands is major partners. We will be working on that flood risk master. There will be some calls. There are 20 plus places you can enroll as a student from all over the world, and you will be sponsored, you will be paid the tuition fee for this course. Some other activities which goes more into research in last some years. We are working on a research program sponsored by our Slovenian research agency. These are the, let's say, the core funding for the UNESCO chair to work. Then we have some projects sponsored by Slovenian research agency, but also acknowledged by the international program on landslides, which goes into the debris flow, morphometric methods to simulate fan formation to see which torrential fans can be endangered by debris flows. You should know that in Europe we do not have that much debris flows on a regular basis as maybe in humid areas in the Pacific Rim. We have been acknowledged as a World Center of Excellence for consecutive terms. This is also now given for 2017 to 2020. We are researching in the area of mainly rainfall-induced landslides in weathered flysch, from activation in the landslide area all the way to deposition, so mud flows, debris flows are incorporated. And there is another targeted research project also ongoing. So we have also other projects, of course, which are then outside the scope of the UNESCO chair. Then I went a bit to published overviews so that I can see how far are some countries with respect to the fulfillment of the Sustainable Development Goals. So there is a report, pretty fresh one, giving an index and a dashboard. And if you go, you can see I'm quite happy that Slovenia is on the 8th place, which means that we are quite safe, and Japan is also quite high. But nevertheless, in fulfillment of these goals, of course, starting points are not the same. And also maybe the possible achievement level cannot be the same, at least within the reasonable limits. Slovenia, we will see that we, as UNESCO chair, we are working for several development goals, not for all of them, of course. We have selected 4 of them. So even Slovenia, which is quite high, has some problems. These problems are given in red color. So of course, each country can improve its position. It should just work towards achieving these goals in the next decades. Then I went to another report, which is about the Sendai framework on disaster risk reduction. I was very happy that I was part of the Slovenian delegation. So I was at that time in Sendai when this framework was confirmed. And I think it has been accepted because the conference was in Japan. I think that contribution of Japan really to get through with this framework was tremendous. This report shows about disaster science. So how many are countries publishing on disasters and how much are they hit by these disasters? It is quite interesting that in last, 5 years, if you take the database Scopus, which is the larger than the Web of Science, you will see that there have been published 28,000 papers on disasters, mainly on prevention, much less on recovery. I think this can be taken as a good signal. From the types point of view, what we are tackling, our chair, we are tackling geophysical problems, of course also meteorological and hydrological. So within these 3 types, the majority of reported events have happened, at least in this scientific literature. It is also important that this report shows share of populations, which is the shade of the country, how much these countries have been presented in disaster risk scholarly output. This is the size of the circle, so we can see that Japan is very strong, China is very strong, India, United States, and many countries within Europe. And sources are, of course, given in Scopus. So relative activity index, green color is better, shows that countries which are hit by disasters are also reporting on these disasters. So they are disseminating results. I think this is worth of trying to take a look at, not to go into too much detail. And this is also a comparison taken out of the report. This is the original website. So you can see the field-weighted citation impact, and this is the relative activity index. So Japan, in a way, is very active, is publishing a lot. Unfortunately, we are not reading enough science in Japan, or citing this science at least. So in this case, many countries which are below average, comparable to the activity, so they are reporting, let's say, above average what they have experienced. This is just a report to think about. Now let me go into a few details about our initiative, More Room for River, which stands the acronym, More Room for Water. So there have been some starting points. There are more, of course. I've mentioned here in the presentation only a few. So there is an international vision 2050 to stop traffic victims until 2050, so-called achieving zero traffic deaths. European Union is really forcing that. Each country is a standalone, of course, in that respect, but nevertheless, this is a tremendous goal, and it's not very likely to be achieved, but nevertheless. So there was a 10-year Dutch flood mitigation project called Room for the River. So they have changed their attitude from classical river engineering to a more, let's say, natural-based solutions because they have seen that they cannot escape from flooding from the sea or from large floods coming out of Central Europe. So they should adapt to these natural events. There is, of course, the Sendai framework. There is the United Nations Agenda for Sustainable Development. There are our own experiences gathered in last 20 years working in experimental river basins. And there are also our contributions and experiences to international cooperation within the Sava River and Danube River basin. Sava is maybe too small, but Danube, I think you know, it is a pretty large river. 20 plus countries are members of that Danube basin. So we are forced. Slovenia is a small country, 2 million inhabitants, not a billion, 2 million inhabitants, 20,500 square kilometers. Larger than Singapore, but less inhabitants. So the initiative is targeting the same sustainable development goals as we are targeting in the UNESCO chair in Ljubljana. This is quality education, which is very stressed by WENDI as well. Clean water and sanitation, which is also part of the More Room for Water initiative. Climate change, which is a cross-cutting, I think everyone just mentioned this issue, and of course partnership for the goals, which is Sendai framework, which is a unity network on what we are doing today. So we have selected these 4 goals as also our goals in the years to come. The initiative, which says that of course water levels will be in some years quite higher, let it be due to climate change and more so, and maybe also, of course, other changes in river basins, but nevertheless, what we would like to do is that we would like to interrelate natural and technical sciences. What have been shown by Professor Zalewski, of course, ecohydrology is doing something in between, maybe less technical, but nevertheless, many solutions are built solutions using natural products, natural processes. So this initiative was prepared for the 23rd session of the UNESCO IHP, where it got just informal support. I was told by Professor Brilli, who joined there, that simply the schedule was too long and they couldn't discuss that. So we still have time to come back again to IHP and try to get maybe a formal support for it. The ratio behind the initiative is simply really to promote adaptive or integrated water resources management, bottom-up governance, not the top-down approach, in different fields which are also covered by the WENDI. What we would like to achieve is, especially in the preparedness phase, we should raise the awareness of water-related disasters and stimulate this reorientation in our water resources management. What we are planning is the first step. We have in mind to prepare a monograph of selected case studies and best practices around the world, which will show us that maybe this understanding of the acronym More Room for Water can be taken from several perspectives, not just from this one that rivers should have more water, for flooding, and that you should take out the infrastructure. Also, for any kind of recharging, natural recharging of groundwater, you need places, you need room for the flooding waters to infiltrate. And I think this is important that we are taking this initiative, and I think that we are doing that through other initiatives, let it be the sediment initiative or flood initiative, is doing something similar in a way. Let me go to possible collaboration and maybe conclude with 2 slides about the possible collaboration between the 2 chairs. You have seen this talk is not about research results. I could take that, but it is more a political or social sciences of cooperation, but nevertheless. So I can see that we can cooperate, of course, raising landslide risk awareness and social resilience through research and education for specifically landslide risk reduction. This is part of the WENDI schedule. Raising knowledge, expertise, and awareness of transboundary water issues, We have some knowledge from the Danube Basin, as I said, and Japan also shares sea around with the neighbors. What I think is very important, not to think just about water or floods, but also about the pollution. We have been told quite a lot about that, about the quality, water quality, about the sediments. Personally, I'm a civil engineer, hydraulic engineer, dealing with sediment budgets, so I'm keen also to incorporate sediments, not just into sediment-related disasters, but normal fluvial transport of sediments. Siltation, sedimentation, things like that. And of course, droughts, heat waves, climate change. Drought is important for irrigation purposes, for food security, and you need water somewhere as a groundwater or in a reservoir. As I mentioned, more room for water initiative, drinking water issues and water reuse, which we in Europe are now taking into account when we talk about circular economy and about smart cities. This can be also part of our cooperation. I have some professors working in the field also of earthquake engineering, so this also can be an issue, especially in building codes, because they have some contributions to the European Union building codes, Eurocode in the European Union. Digitalization of cultural heritage, this is one additional possibility, and especially I think introducing the ICT, so information communication technologies, into the educational curricula in water, energy, and DRR. How we could do that? I think that we have already established a good cooperation, University of Ljubljana with the University of Kyoto, within the framework of International Consortium on Landslides, publishing journal Landslides, doing IPL projects. There are possibility of summer schools for doctoral PhD students. There are options to apply for a bilateral research project between Japan and Slovenia. There are calls every 2 years. There are possibilities of working in the field in experimental river basins close to Ljubljana and elsewhere. For example, to Škocjan Caves, which is a UNESCO heritage site. We do have 2 geoparks in Slovenia. As I said, we are small. One is the Idrija, which is a mercury mine closed since 12 years or so. So we have there mercury pollution problems. The other one is Karavanke mountain region geopark, shared, divided by Austria. It's on our border with Austria, where we are now researching torrents and debris flows. What I think is very important is to stimulate cooperation in things of publishing international publications in co-authorship, so that there are several countries authorshipping one paper. I think this is important to share our knowledge, to discuss during preparing a paper, combining or making combination or between several countries, let it be from Eastern Asia or Europe versus Japan. The same way as we are doing interdisciplinary papers, and this will be contribution to knowledge dissemination. And of course, which is important, I think, in this 21st century, is developing of open educational resources. For example, in Slovenia, we have 3 UNESCO chairs. One of those chairs is precisely dedicated to the open educational resources. We had a large congress in Ljubljana last year, sponsored by UNESCO, and we have some tools so that we could really contribute to the WENDI activities, not just flying each time to Kansai airport, but simply cooperating in this way. I would like to conclude and allow me to express my sincere condolences to all the victims of the natural disasters that happened this July 2018. As I was told, hopefully in typhoon there were only damage, which is of course also a problem. Thank you for your attention. Arigato gozaimasu.